This is the Mysterium Cosmographicum. It's simple, it's beautiful, it even predicts the distances between the first 6 planets. And it's wrong. But here's why that's okay. Hey crazies, we're all human. I think. We all make mistakes. We've all come up with plans or ideas that turned out to be not so great. It's part of the human experience. But one of my favorite things is when bad ideas lead us to good ones. And it happens in science more often than you'd think. This Mysterium Cosmographicum is one such example. It was developed by a guy named Johannes Kepler in 1596, over a decade before the proper laws we'd eventually name after him. Astronomy teachers like to skip to those later laws and then paint Kepler as this pure mathematician with no character depth. But like anybody, he was multifaceted. He may have been a mathematician and astronomer, but he was also an astrologer, a husband, a father, and a deeply religious man. These all come together to create the lens through which he saw the world. Now, that's not to say that Kepler didn't have opposing opinions. For example, he was Lutheran when most people were Catholic, which certainly made his life difficult. He also had a problem with the established philosophy about the universe. The common belief at the time was that the Earth was at the center of the universe, and that all other objects go around it. I mean, why wouldn't the Earth be at the center? It's obviously the most important, right? But my boy J-Kep was skeptical. He knew the path of planets like Mars would periodically do this weird wiggle in the sky when you track them over a long time. For an Earth-centered model to display motion like that, you had to add these things called epicycles that caused the orbits to curl up. It was a mess. As far as Kepler was concerned, there was no way a divine being would create a universe so complicated. He thought God would create a universe that was simple and geometric. First, it should definitely include the Platonic Solids. You've most likely seen them as these 5 dice. They're named after Plato of ancient Greek fame, not because he discovered them, but because he associated each of them with a Greek element. Although, by Kepler's time, scholars weren't really using the Greek elements anymore. That concept had evolved into alchemy, but not quite modern chemistry. Baby steps, okay? People did still consider the Platonic solids to be divine shapes, though. And Kepler shared this philosophy. These 5 solids are built from 3 special polygons: the equilateral triangle, the square, and the regular pentagon, all with equal sides and equal angles. No hexagons, though. As it turns out, hexagons are not always the bestagons. Anyway, Kepler had these 7 objects, these 5 geometric solids, and the good old trusty sphere. And he set out to model the universe. Kepler favored a sun-centered universe, for religious reasons, not mathematical ones. The first thing he did was actually group the astronomical objects according to the Holy Trinity. Maybe that wasn't the best motivation to form an opinion, but it did allow him to take a step in the right direction, which he wouldn't have done otherwise. The sun is the source of divine light. It should obviously be in the center. The real question is, where would the planets go? And that is why Kepler needed the Platonic solids. Say you've got a sphere. Then you circumscribe that sphere inside of an octahedron. That's the solid with 8 faces. Then you circumscribe that inside of another sphere. Then circumscribe that inside of an icosahedron, the solid with 20 faces. Then another sphere, then the dodecahedron, the one with 12 faces. Sphere, tetrahedron, sphere, cube, sphere. Kepler came up with this specific configuration because it matched where the real-life planets would be in a sun-centered universe. Assuming Mercury is a dot on the first sphere and Venus is a dot on the second sphere, Kepler found the ratio between the radii of those spheres. Then he found the ratio between the orbits of Venus and Mercury, and they matched. The same went for all of the other ratios. It's beautiful and elegant, and as far as Kepler was concerned, holy. He called it the Mysterium Cosmographicum, or the Cosmic Mystery, and he published it in 1596, very early in his career. It went largely unnoticed, but Kepler always hoped he'd get access to data to prove it correct. Enter Tycho Brahe. This dude knew how to get funding. First, he convinced a king to build him an observatory on a private island that was basically a castle. Then when that king's son took over, Tycho Brahe ran away, gained favor with another king, and had a new observatory built. This man was a powerhouse. Speaking of getting funding, this video was brought to you by the new and improved ScienceAsylum.com. My ebook is available there, along with all my merch. I also have memberships available on there that come with perks, like access to a monthly live Q&A, access to my Discord server, and even discounts on products. Please consider supporting this channel if you can, it helps out a lot. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled programming. This man was a powerhouse. Needless to say, a lot of astronomical data was collected. Telescopes hadn't been invented yet, so it was mostly just positions of planets and stars and stuff. But it was data that Kepler desperately wanted access to. So he had a meeting with this Tycho Brahe guy in 1600 who hired Kepler that year. Of course, he accepted the job and pored over the data for several years, only to discover that he was wrong. The Mysterium Cosmographicum, as shown here, does not work. As you can imagine, this was devastating for Kepler. But the data did show he was correct about one thing. The Earth is not at the center. By 1609, he had published Astronomia Nova, or New Astronomy, where he outlined 2 laws for planetary orbits. 1. Each planet orbits not in a circle, but in an ellipse, with the sun at one focus of that ellipse. While the sun wasn't at the geometric center, it was still clearly in control. 2. If you connect the sun to the planet with a line segment, it'll sweep out equal areas in equal time. In other words, planets move faster when they're closer to the sun. His third law wouldn't arrive until 10 years later in 1619, when he published Harmonis Mundi, or the Harmony of the World. It states that the square of a planet's orbital period is proportional to the cube of its orbital semi-major axis. I'll admit that one's a little more mathy than you'd probably like. But it does show that orbits are harmonious. Hence Kepler's title for the work, The Harmony of the World. Though if you flip through it, it's clear he was still trying to make that whole Platonic Solids thing happen. And for good reason. Do you remember those ratios? It's kind of freaky that these are so perfect, right? I can understand getting stuck on it. But here's the thing, they're not actually perfect. If you use modern values for the orbital radii, the Platonic Solids aren't as good a fit. The fact that they were close, just a coincidence. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. It's so hardwired for it that we often see patterns even when there are none. But that's okay. What matters is that we acknowledge it when faced with reality. Kepler was willing to update his view in light of new data, but he never would have gotten there without coming up with his Mysterium Cosmographicum first. The real mistake would have been for him to stop trying. And until next time, remember, it's okay to be a little crazy. Sean H. Corey says gravity is a fictitious force. Sure, gravity's not a force in the same way that electromagnetism is, so distinguishing them is important. I'm just saying that fictitious might not be the best qualifier. Anyway, thanks for watching.